Yeah, man, he just feels like a brother to me. And I feel like I'm glad we made the movie and I'm super proud of it. And I'm equally proud that we have this bond, this friendship to take away from it.
Well, Charlie is like he's a very dear friend and he's a mentor. I learned I was a young kid when we did Anomalisa together, and that was my first feature, and I learned everything from him.
We are going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
But I'm an actor. It's who I am.
So I'll just start with a question for both of you. I mean, this is a difficult movie to describe, and that's meant as a compliment. Certainly in terms of the look and the atmosphere of it. I'm wondering if was it easy for you to visualize what it was going to look like when you were first reading the script, that it was going to have this sort of surreal theatrical style to it?
I had seen Duke's film Anomalisa and loved it, and then read this and then spoke to him about how he was planning to shoot it, and it just seemed really intriguing to me, like an opportunity to do something that wasn't like anything that I'd filmed before. He told me he planned to cast an ensemble of actors who would play multiple roles. He wanted to use a lot of practical effects, taken over from the world of stop motion animation into this live action world, you know, painting the sets but with forced perspective, you know, having sets being moved on camera, opening up, and our characters being in the street. All of these things which I thought were really playful, quite heightened and quite stylized, but it just felt like such an opportunity to try something really different. And then at the heart of the script is this story that's really a very emotional story that really resonated with me.
And I think also Duke had such a clear idea about what it is he wanted to do from the beginning that,
Yeah.
he painted such a clear picture for me that I felt completely trusting of him. And then also getting a chance to work with such wonderful actors like Gemma. I knew we would figure it out.
He's been clear that it was a difficult movie to make in terms of the budget compared to the grand vision and all these things he wanted to do. I wonder if either of you found it to be a challenging production to work on.
I mean, there were some challenges. We shot in Budapest in the dead of winter, so it was very, very cold, and it was ambitious. I mean, we tried to do a lot with a little, and yeah. But I think like everybody was game for it. When I think back to some of the actors who came to play, whether it was like Owen or Simon McBurney, Yusuf, those guys, they came and they really wanted to do it, and were willing to stay late and to come in early to make it happen. So I can't say that I felt the difficulty, although I was very much aware of the fact that it was a challenge.
Yeah, it felt like a real labor of love for everyone involved, and every department from, Susie Harmon, who made these incredible
Mm.
costumes, to our amazing hair and makeup department. Like everyone put such love and care into the details of the film, and wanting to do justice to this vision that Duke had. So yeah, it was certainly a challenge when you're trying to make a film on a budget and do a lot with a little. It's challenging, but I felt that everyone got it, and everyone was, really passionate about trying to make it work.
Because it has this sort of theatrical feel to it. Sometimes it almost feels like you're watching a play unfold before your eyes. Did you have time to rehearse beforehand? Was Duke very specific in terms of what he wanted the performances to be?
It wasn't a ton of rehearsal, although we did get some.
Mm.
I think we had some like official rehearsals, but then also a lot of us got together on our own and found time to rehearse. Um, but even in the scenes where we didn't have a really long extended rehearsal period, I feel like Duke had already thought it through so specifically
Mm.
that on the day we were able to rehearse it quickly and then find that common ground pretty swiftly. And also people were like wild and taking chances. I'm thinking about May Calamari, and she was just coming with this like big idea, and
Mm.
everybody was just giving so much to it. I think that's what made it work. What were you
Yeah.
thinking?
No, it felt like a really collaborative process. So there were certain technical demands in terms of how you could envisage the scene to be shot, and the transitions especially were very technical. But in terms of our performances and the emotion that we brought to it. I felt like he really gave us permission to bring ourselves to it, to bring our own ideas, and he really trusted us to do that.
Personally, always like movies that are about, the nature of identity and, can a person change who they are, or are they destined to be a certain way? Did working on this film kind of highlight those sort of existential concepts for either of you, especially being actors yourselves?
Yeah, for sure. I was just thinking the other day, I'm remembering like what had drawn me to the script, and like you say, this idea of who are we, the question of who are we, and do we stay fixed? Can we change? And although I haven't suffered from amnesia in the way that Paul does in the film, when I look back at my life and I look back to earlier periods of my life, 10, 20 years ago, it's like a different self. I don't know if you've had that experience, like when you look back. So in a kind of smaller way, I feel that there's that, and you're questioning, like, am I the same person as I was 20 years ago? When I look back, it feels like someone a lifetime ago, and we have these almost like multiple lives within our lifetime, and it's beautiful. I feel that it will hopefully ask a lot of questions and bring up a lot of questions like that for people who see the film.
Yeah, same thing. Yes, it's powerful to think about starting over. That we have the ability to start over. It's a really
Did either of you read the book that's based on, or did you find that that wasn't necessary?
I didn't read it before we shot, but I read it after we finished, more, out of curiosity. But I knew.
I read it. Yeah, I read it before, and I don't know that it necessarily informed any particular thing, but it just kind of satisfied my curiosity, and maybe there were some small things that it helped me understand. But it was a fun read.
Andre, Duke has called you his soulmate, which I have to imagine is a big compliment. What is it that makes your relationship with him so special?
It's not. It's really, we have a really, really sweet connection. And I think as like two grown men, it's not always easy to build those kinds of connections at this point in life. But he and I did from the very first time we met. We met at a party years ago, and right away just like found ourselves in the corner and just huddling, talking about movies and maybe wanting to work together one day. And I hadn't seen anything the man had made, and we just were vibing. And then 5 years later, he comes back around with this idea, and yeah, man, he just feels like a brother to me. And I feel like I'm glad we made the movie, and I'm super proud of it. And I'm equally proud that we have this bond, this friendship to take away from it.
Well, thank you guys again so much for your time, and congrats on the film. It's really quite something. So you should be proud of the work you put into it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks. Have a great time. First of all, thank you so much for your time, Duke. Pleasure to talk to you, and congrats on the film's release, because I know it's something you've been working on for several years now. So you must be relieved to finally be done with it.
Thank you so much.
Well, just to start, what about the original source material made you want to turn the book into a movie? Because certainly I've never read the book, I must admit, but I know the writer. He's known for his pulpy kind of crime novels, and this is a very different looking type of movie than you might expect from a Donald Westlake adaptation.
Yeah, so that's kind of what drew me to it initially. It was Charlie Kaufman that recommended the book to me. I asked him for book recommendations, and he had just read it. And his sort of pitch to me on what he liked about it was that it is this kind of famous crime novelist, and the book is sort of in the guise of a crime noir thriller type story that uses the trope of amnesia as a way to propel the plot forward. But in this case, it sort of subverts that expectation and uses it more as a way to explore the concept of identity, and I thought that was really interesting. And then what really drew me to want to adapt it into a film is, I don't know, maybe this is kind of a crazy thing to do, but the book is so much of it is internal monologue of the main character. It's all his thoughts, and really his emotional experience comes from the counterpoint of his interactions and what's going on in his mind. And I thought, well, in order to translate this into an audio-visual experience, how could you sort of try to visualize the experience of somebody with fragmented memories and a lack of identity? And that seemed like a worthy challenge.
You know, your background is largely in animation. Surely most people know you as co-directing Anomalisa. And I feel like you could kind of get that when you're watching the movie because it has this very interesting style. But can you talk about the challenges that you faced directing a live action film?
Well, yeah, it's funny because I always pursued live action as a filmmaker. Like I went to film school like everybody else and pursued live action filmmaking. And then I kind of found my way into animation almost accidentally. And then I fell in love with it. But what happened throughout that process is I sort of discovered my process as a filmmaker and how I previs things and visualize things. And I brought that into the live action world, but the thing that's very different about live action is this ticking clock that you have every day. Animation, it's hard in different ways, but it allows you the time to kind of contemplate and set up your shots. And shots take days or weeks, not minutes, where they're like, you show up at the location and they're like, okay, you have an hour, and you're like, what, an hour, to shoot this scene that's been in my head for years. That was a harrowing aspect of live action production that I had to adapt to, and it's part of the reason that you said it's been a years long process, and that's part of the reason because I was very ambitious in what I wanted to accomplish with the film visually. And, we built an entire city in a warehouse in Budapest and stuff for like no money. But ultimately, it was difficult to get everything I needed at that time. So over the past couple of years, I was sort of grabbing little things and inserting little things and little pieces of animation and things in my own studio in Burbank.
Well, I mean, mentioning that, it has been a long time coming. I think it was first announced in like 2021 or so.
Yeah.
So I have to assume you were working on it even prior to that. Now that it's finally coming out, can you look back and just talk a bit about how tough of a road it was to get here?
Yeah, how tough of a road it was. I mean, it's always, as they say, the old adage that it's a miracle that anything gets made. It really does feel that way, because it starts from you reading a piece of source material and then thinking, well, is it even possible? Is this option, even available? Could I option this book? And then you option it. And then how do you write a screenplay? And then you write the screenplay and it's just a book in screenplay form, and that doesn't work. And how does it become a movie? And you have to think of it differently. And then that takes time. And then there's casting. And then and then getting the film sold to somebody. I mean, thank God Neon was they're so willing to take chances on artists and filmmakers and weird, ambitious, crazy, out of the box types things, and they've been very supportive throughout that process. But I mean, that question we could talk about for 2 hours because it's all hard, and that's part of the process, and it's part of the creative process too, because directing is, like, from my point of view, it's all problem solving. That's what it is. So it's only problems. There's only a set of problems every day, all day long, that you're trying to find creative and innovative ways to solve.
Did it kind of make you go, oh man, I can't wait to just go animate something by myself and take all the time I need?
Well, that's what, I always think, like, well, after I did Anomalisa, I was like, I'm never going to do another animated film because it's too hard. And then I'm like, oh, live action, pretty hard. So maybe I'll try animation again. Yeah, it's funny how that works.
You mentioned Charlie Kaufman, and he's an executive producer on this. What were his specific contributions to this project?
Well, Charlie is like he's a very dear friend, and he's a mentor. I learned, I was a young kid when we did Anomalisa together, and that was my first feature, and I learned everything from him. I call him and ask for his advice. He read the script, and he's very encouraging and gives me his thoughts. And he, as I said, he recommended the book to me to begin with, and he's the one that encouraged me that if you love it so much, you should option it and try to make it as a movie. And I was like, he's just a very supportive, encouraging, and he's, the most brilliant person that I know. So anytime I'm stuck or anytime I'm don't know what to do, or I've, lost all confidence and faith, I call him or I email him, and he's there for me. So he's
You
like,
must still have like pinch me moments that like Charlie Kaufman is your close friend and collaborator.
well, yeah, yes, he's always been a hero of mine before I knew him personally, and he still is, which is a rare thing, don't meet your heroes. But no, he's always been very generous and amazing to me. So yes, I'm always grateful for him.
So what now that you finally have this in the can and it's coming out, do you know what's next for you? Are you going to go back into animation, or do you like working in the live action world?
Yes, I like working in the live action world, and I'm going back to animation. I'm doing a sort of kind of a top secret hybrid kind of thing that I'm very excited about. I can't wait to tell you about it, but no word for now.
Awesome. Well, again, congrats on the film coming out, and it's really quite something. It's one of those movies that's so difficult to describe to somebody, which is kind of the best kind of movie, really. So congrats on that, and looking forward to the next one.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo remains an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.